all right. Let's get to it. I think I got everything set up for the day. All right. I don't love that, but okay. So, Stone Progressive, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have been sick, which is why I've not been on the last couple nights. And I was going to go to sleep, but I watched a debate. One hell of a debate. One interesting hell of a debate. And it kept me awake. And I was like, you know what? I got enough antihistamines or whatever in me. I can stream for a little while. Talk about this debate. Um, I'm probably not in the mindset to talk about anything. I've been known to ramble a little bit today with the whole fever. But let's give it a shot. I got some probiotic juice here. I'm gonna switch over to some bubbly water. Try to stay not just water hydrated. I just drank a Voss. We'll see how it goes, right? Um, Bow chicka bow. Let us though start the day with not that one. All right. While I smoke, like I said, I've been awake. I want to sleep. We're gonna do this as long as I can stay awake. I got a lot of shit piled up since I haven't streamed since these last couple days I've been sick. I got a lot of stuff set, a lot of stuff to go, but we will go as far as we can. I did want to start out with this. I have not talked about the State of the Union address yet. I would love to talk about the State of the Union address, but I never want to come at it from a standard perspective. So let's review Matthew Ho and his taking down of Biden's State of the Union by a Green Party candidate in North Carolina who I've listened to what he has to say. I agree with a lot of what he has to say, so I'm interested in him. I have a lot of friends in North Carolina, so I'll be doing this kind of stuff because the fact is it gets around.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Matthew Ho.
Hey,
I'm a Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. We just witnessed during the State of the Union the two parties of war and Wall Street cheer for profits and stock prices over human life and our planet. But before I get into commentary on tonight's address by the president, I want to briefly introduce myself and explain why I'm sitting here. I was a Marine Corps officer, and I went to war 3 times before resigning in protest against the escalation of the Afghan war by President Obama in 2009. I regret very deeply and profoundly taking part in those wars. There's an anger at myself and an anger at those who led, enabled, sustained, and cheered for those wars. I wish for accountability for myself for taking part in those wars, and I want accountability of those who
he's talking at a very I mean, it's a good pace for what he's saying and the importance of what he has to say. But for all intents and purposes, I want to hear like 20 minutes of this. I don't want to hear the whole thing, but I want to hear a lot of it before we talk about the debate. So I'm going to watch it in a little bit fast forward. I think his voice should be fine. If I no, I can't. Oh, that's wrong. Because I'm freaking not even looking at the right thing. Just reactory right now, guys. I apologize.
destroyed and ruined entire nations and the lives of tens of millions of people. This is a large part of why I'm sitting here with you tonight. I am also moved and compelled by the injustice, economic and civil. I see my friends and neighbors, our brothers and sisters, who are undone, broken, and subjugated by. All those things that are deliberate results of U.S. government policies. This is why I'm here tonight. And I suspect, particularly the latter, is what motivates you to be here as well with me. Obscenely, perhaps the loudest cheers tonight were for the killing that is occurring in Ukraine. The catastrophe in Ukraine has very nearly everything to do with liquid natural gas markets and other commercial concerns and the megalomania of those in DC, Moscow, London, and Kyiv. Those, as well, are the reasons that have driven the U.S. war.
I'd say he's like 70% right on that. I mean, there's always a lot of things, UN expansion, but the gas pipeline is the reason for both Syria and Ukraine. Seriously. Like, the extraction of wealth from the earth is so important to the oligarchs.
wars of invasion, aggression, and occupation throughout the Muslim world. Wars that are now mostly secret and extend from the west coast of Africa all the way to Pakistan. Wars that may be unseen to us, but are brutal, calamitous, and criminal to those living through them. Perhaps nowhere is this better displayed than in Afghanistan, of which the president made no mention tonight. 40 plus years of U.S. war in that country has led the population to be governed by the Taliban again. The people of Afghanistan are starving and freezing through the winter. And the United States has just stolen their money. This is why we say we see no difference in these wars. We also see the very real danger in these wars to all people, the entire planet. For 80 years, the human race has lived foolishly and dangerously under the threat of nuclear annihilation. We have people in both DC and Moscow who believe nuclear wars are winnable. And the militaries of both countries have usable nuclear weapons, as they call them. The danger of this cannot be overstated. And as leaders in nations here and abroad choose war, our people, all people, suffer from the worst public health disaster in a century. Again, profit over people. Before the pandemic, we had a failed healthcare system. The COVID crisis of the last 2 years has just shown how truly incapable, ineffective, and fragile our healthcare system actually is. With close to 1 million dead in the US and many times that number around the world, our leaders continue to prioritize dollars over health and lives. Decisions have been made for big business and Wall Street, whether it's the trillions that have been put into the financial markets by the Fed, enriching corporations and making billionaires more wealthy. Where do you think these hundreds of billions of dollars have come from for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk? Or it's the scams that the government's programs advertise as helping working families have truly been exposed to bin, such as the Paycheck Protection Program. Meanwhile, working families are seeing costs rise all around them. Food, fuel, housing, everyone sitting here today with me knows this. Millions of jobs have not been recovered. The president made a big deal about 6 million jobs have been regained. The problem is that we lost about 10 million jobs.
Jesus.
And
oh, I love that they never put stuff in perspective when they give us information. They just, now again, I did not watch the State of the Union. I did listen to, in kind of a half sleep, half daze, listen to Revolutionary Blacked Out Network, their response to it, their reactions to it, but they kept muting it and they kept muting it, so I didn't really listen to it, which is fine with me.
I don't see those millions of jobs coming back, not with current government policies. And in our workplaces, well, we see protections that are life and death.
Right
protections have been minimized and dismissed, putting workers.
I'm working with some London pound cake with some crumble on top, so it's very sticky and burns very slow.
And their families at very serious and grave risk. Vaccines are effective and they work. They save lives, but they're being kept under the control of pharmaceutical companies, even as the vaccines were funded by the American taxpayers. And so rather than the vaccines being distributed worldwide, the profit is maximized, keeping those vaccines under control of those pharmaceutical companies. This leaves large parts of the world chronically undervaccinated, and it means the remainder of the world is at risk for new and more dangerous variants. Now compare this phenomenon of the pharmaceutical companies to the weapons companies. You compare that.
I mean, Phil Bates there, he said that after the world reopened from the first pandemic, 6 months later there'd be another pandemic, just like was leaked from the Rothschild meeting back in 2012, said the same thing. So don't be expecting a pandemic anytime soon, guys. Just, don't.
And you see, we understand, right? That these are matters of choice and deliberate decisions by our government to put profit over lives. I've heard others say this, that this pandemic, these wars, this is how our government will respond to the climate crisis when its effects are fully on us. They are telling us now how it will be when in 20, 30 years, the full weight of the climate crisis is apparent. The climate models have been wrong. They've been too conservative. The reality of climate change is worse than what we thought it would be. It is coming harder and faster than what was expected. Those are the words of the most recent report from the IPCC. Here in North Carolina, we've had 2 once-in-a-century hurricanes within the last 5 years. Towns have nearly been washed away by floods. Many of those towns not really having experienced high degrees of flooding before. And we are waiting for our beach towns here to become uninhabitable from sea level rise. And you, in your state, in your community, if you say you haven't seen it yet, I will respond by saying,
I live in a beach town up north and down here in Florida, so I definitely, we definitely talk about water around here. Sea rises, having people go, oh, it's lowest it's ever been right now on low tide. It's the lowest it's ever been. It's like, yeah, dude, that's also part of it. And there was also a fucking hurricane a distance away. So when there's a hurricane somewhere else, it sucks the water from the ocean with that hurricane. I swear, the argument is so fucking great around here for people believing that it'll never change around here. Florida coast.
in this I am certain of. I'll respond by saying that in time, much sooner than you expect, you will see it as well. Those food price increases I just mentioned, a significant percentage of those increases comes from the floods, the droughts, and the fires that every year ravage the western part of our country. Those are climate change caused fires. There's no denying that. The climate crisis is here, and it is only going to get worse. That, in part, is the state of our union.
Yep.
These 3 issues I have just discussed are emblematic of the disregard for human life and dignity displayed by our current elected officials in Washington, D.C. The answer to this.
That's a very political way to not get, not like me when I usually scream at the State of the Union like, you're a fucking idiot, fuck you. That was way more political. But he is a politician. He's running for U.S. Senate. Again, he is running for U.S. Senate under the Green Party. Green Party's not perfect. I would not say any third party is perfect, but as far as people that I would like to take down, Thomas Tillis is a piece of garbage human. When you look at his background, when you look at where his money comes from, the bullshit he says compared to the things that he votes for, he is a right-wing oligarch. And left-wing oligarch, right-wing oligarch, they both need to be taken down. I hate them both. So, and North Carolina doesn't need to be represented by, Raytheon stooge. It really doesn't. So at least this guy has something to say.
This rot, this corruption, this depravity lies in grassroots political independence from the 2-party system built around money. It is only in breaking away from the legalized bribery that defines our politics and government that we can begin to address the issues, systemic and existential, that confront, distort, burden, and dominate our lives, the lives of our families and friends, and those of our neighbors. We have a political system governed by greed, both individual and corporate greed, both ego-based and financial greed, and that toxically spills into our society. How else do we explain a nation where when a new variant of COVID is announced, guaranteeing the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans and millions more worldwide, the stock market erupts in celebration?
Just like it does in war. Man, if like real war starts, the stock market is gonna blow up because there's so much spread around money into all these mini corps that are really just 5. There's like 4 or 5 corporations that make all the weapons, but they have like 30 names underneath their secondary and tertiary names, so they don't look like they're taking all the contracts, even though they're taking all the contracts. And most of these companies make 90% of their profit is off the U.S. government. Why don't we just take them over? Like seriously, why don't we make our own weapons? Why do we let somebody else make our weapons? In a time of war, we're gonna have a corporation being like, sorry, you're gonna lose this war because we decide. Like, no, we should make our own weapons. We should not. There shouldn't be a profit company out there trying. Like we develop them. We're the ones that develop them, and then we give them. Like, it's ridiculous.
To these people, money is simply more important than life. This fundamental concern for life and human dignity separates us from the 2 corporate parties, again, the parties of war and Wall Street. This is why we can say we support neither NATO nor Russia, that we condemn Russia's invasion while condemning the 2014 U.S. coup in Ukraine that, along with other decisions by U.S., Russian, Ukrainian leaders, led to this war.
Exactly.
We can say we don't support either side, but that we support a third side, the people. We oppose the U.S. wars of aggression and occupation and those wars of aggression and occupation by U.S. allies like Saudi Arabia and Israel. Again, just as we condemn Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. And we can say we stand with Ukrainians, just as we stand with those Russians protesting the war, and as we stand with Palestinians, Yemenis, Somalis, Afghans, Egyptians, Iraqis, Syrians, Libyans, and those millions and millions we never hear about in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, we're like 5 bombing campaigns around Somalia and Sudan. Literally 5 bombing campaigns this month. Active bombing campaigns all around Sudan and Somalia, and we're not talking about it because we're killing Africans. That's fine. But they're killing white people. That's not okay. The hyper-focusing of our media is deliberate. And it is deliberate, and it is very, very effective.
We look historically at the decades-long militarism, the greed for fossil fuels and commerce, and the crackpot realism of the experts, pundits, politicians in D.C., London, Moscow, and Kyiv. That is why innocents are dying, and the sons and daughters of workers and farmers are killing each other in Ukraine. Just as we sent our workers and farmers to kill workers and farmers throughout the Muslim world, to paraphrase the late anti-war veteran, our brother, Jacob George. We look at the climate crisis and the pandemic, and we see the same reasons. Decades of disuse, disinterest, and disregard for human life and dignity at the expense of profit. Certainly, that is the explanation for the lack of action on climate change, something our family members only a generation from now will be cursing us for. It explains why the U.S. has twice the number of COVID deaths per capita compared to other high-income countries. For example, 4 times the number of Germany. Simply because we have a for-profit healthcare system. I am brought here today, as many as you are, not by academic study, by books I have read, or by someone I heard on YouTube, but by personal experience. The issues, the policies that form the platform of my campaign and that of the Green Party. I have many people in my life who suffer because of those issues. The people I have in my life close to me who suffer, and I use that word suffer because this is what is happening to them, suffer because they do not have health care, because it is simply too expensive. Whether they are insured or underinsured, healthcare is out of reach for them. They have to make very dangerous decisions because they just simply do not have enough money in their checking account. A while ago, a few weeks ago, I decided I would figure out how many people I actually do know who have died from overdoses. I stopped counting because it was a masochistic endeavor to do that.
I had a discussion with somebody recently, within the last month or so, about if you counted deaths from the last 3 years, like which one was worse for you, and everyone in the discussion said opioids over COVID, and it's maybe it's just my generation, maybe that's the places I've lived. These are maybe hotbeds, but that was devastating to me. I can't even really think about it. I gotta move on.
The number of parents, children, partners who no longer have the futures they once thought they had because their loved one is no longer with us. Because as a nation, we treat substance abuse and addiction as a criminal matter and not a public health matter. That their loved ones were viewed by our system not as patients, but as criminals. And now they are no longer with us, as are 100,000 who we lose every year to overdose death. I see in my neighborhood, and I'm sure you all do as well, people being forced to move because of the cost of housing. Their rents are going up, and not by a few percentage, but by 10, 20%. Last year in North Carolina, rents went up by 20%. And people in my neighbors
Now, Charlotte is literally where I lived, where the rent went up $100 a year for me. 5 years I lived there. Every year the rent went up $100 a month, not a year, a month. And that was because since 2008, the corporations took over that city, and there's not many small house owners anymore. It's corporations, condos, apartment complexes, and yeah. So our my rent went up $100 a month. I moved to places. I would try to, let's move somewhere else, get in a better neighborhood, get a better place. No matter where you lived, the rent went up $100 a month the next year you signed, and that was standard procedure there. And that is, that you're looking at 10-15% increase a year every single year for 5 years, while my income went down by like 5 to 10% a year because people were going out less, people weren't going to concerts as much, people weren't going to venues as much, and as a bartender that hurts your income. So yeah, North Carolina, that Charlotte just got gouged.
Have to
Asheville
move.
too.
They already
Asheville as well got gouged.
live far from work because they, like so many other Americans, can't afford to live where they work. And so now they move farther away from work. And of course, the wars. The wars both.
Yeah, I do side with Einstein. Einstein and William Sidis, both the two smartest people on the planet in America in that 1900 to 1920 area. They're William Sidis and Einstein were both socialists. So yeah, I'm with them on economic ideas. Um, I I am not as smart as they are, and William Sidis got freaking arrested for protesting in a socialist parade. And I mean, he was considered the smartest American ever born, and this guy was a massive pro socialist, and he wrote every freaking idea that we ever have come up with black holes. He came up with it a freaking 105, 115 years ago. So yeah, I agree with those kind of people. I tend to think of myself as I'll take a genius side over a billionaire or a millionaire side. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, as a general idea, I don't. Um, yeah, it's debatable. I think I believe that there are many ways. We all have to accept that there's problems, and then there's many ways to look at fixing them. But what we are currently doing is ignoring the problems. That's what I would say. And my opinion is that a socialist or a libertarian way of doing things would be better than what we're currently doing. And fucking, I mean, anarchy would be almost better than what we're currently doing. And just letting corporations own our economy is a little insane. Our economy, our government, everything except for our day to day life.
Overseas and those here at home. One of the things I have come to really understand is that the wars overseas are mirrors of the wars here at home. I see the effects on people, the effects of overseas wars, the effects of mass incarceration, the effects of border policy. And I say, we cannot abide this any longer. The first thing we need is an economic bill of rights that will sustain working families and prepare us for the future that climate change will bring. Again, this is what separates us from the two parties of war and Wall Street, our belief in human dignity and rights. We believe that healthcare, housing, education, and jobs are human rights. And we believe that our government has a duty to meet those rights. None of those things, healthcare, housing, and education, should be defined by how much money you make. Universal healthcare, universal higher education, student debt cancellation, rent control, an annually adjusted living wage. $15 an hour would have been good 5 or 6 years ago, but $15 an hour is not enough to live on in North Carolina any longer.
It sure as fuck isn't enough after inflation, the way it's jumping up. Inflation is jumping up. So, no, the current $15 an hour in 5 years trajectory in 4 or 5 years, that is what they're saying. They know not 15 tomorrow, 15 in 5 or 6 years. No big deal. That is 10 years too high because with inflation right now, that doesn't help anybody. And inflation isn't hurting the rich because they've inflated their revenue by giving themselves 30-40% increase in pay and bonuses.
Certainly not is in most parts of the country. We should have a job guarantee, good jobs with good training. This can all be part of the Green New Deal that will bring 20 million, 30 million jobs potentially to the United States. We must have a program that allows us to meet the challenges of now and the dire consequences of the coming future. If you'd like to learn more about what type of policy proposals we have,
We'll talk for a
I
second.
encourage you to go to my campaign website, MatthewHoforSenate.org, or to the Green Party website, simply gp.org.
And I will not say I'm endorsing the Green Party by any means. I did vote Jill Stein. I absolutely voted Jill Stein, but I wasn't exactly screaming for Howie through the rooftop. I really liked 2016's third-party candidates. I mean, I thought Johnson and Stein were way better than Trump and Clinton. Like, why were we not allowing the other two parties on that year was ridiculous to me. So I think the Green Party needs to get their shit together, just like every third party needs to get their shit together. And, let's, yeah. Anyway, the two parties don't work. And that's why I wanted him to go over the State of the Union, but he really just kind of hit a couple points and then, used his anti-democratic talking points, which is fine. He has to promote himself right now because he's got to get about 15,000, 18,000 signatures to get on the ballot still because the Green Party, they make him run through hoops every freaking year, even though they should already have been on the ballot every freaking year. All right. So the next thing I wanted to get to, the reason I'm awake, even though I have been sick a few days, I'm feeling a little bit better today. I was thinking about streaming, but I was also thinking about sleeping. But the reason I'm awake was the Jackson Hinkle and what ultraviolet. Hold on, infrared show. Sorry, it's Haas. Those two were going against Destiny and Dylan. He's still on right now. He's live. Dylan Burns, and that debate was just happened to be on when I was switching on something to maybe fall asleep to. I like to fall asleep to to something interesting usually, and maybe Jackson. A lot of times when I get home from work, I'll throw on Jackson to pass out too. But yeah, they were going at it, so that was fantastic. It was pretty entertaining, and for the most part, I would say that Jackson dominated the situation. Haas was kind of unleashed, which was fun to watch. And sometimes it got a touch cringe, but for the most part, he kept the other two rattled. Destiny was pretty much swept over by nothing. Or I mean, not Dylan. Dylan was fuck. I can't ever remember his name. I've only heard his voice one time. And I was like, ugh. Dylan Burns. He got pretty much swept aside by everybody, and then yeah, that's more Howie Hawkins, I think. Where I mean, if you want to backtrack on that last one, it's I don't know. Each individual. That's how I always look at it. Each individual. I will not gonna support the Green Party, but I do support that guy, and I believe third parties are viable ways to be more independent. I mean, if you get a Congress seat or a Senate seat as a Green Party, if you pull that off, you're not going to have your seat member barking over your head every day. You're going to have access to like work with. You're going to be able to vote how you want. You're going to be able to vote your conscience, which neither Dems and Republicans can do. And anyhow, the debate. Like I said, the winners were definitely Jackson. I would say the Destiny and Haas kind of canceled each other out, even though Destiny had nothing to say really. He was bullshit. Just their attitudes kind of canceled each other out. So Jackson won. uh, Destiny got canceled out by Haas, and fucking Dylan was swept aside like nothing. But a couple things that came up I wanted to go over because they were just, yelling at each other a lot of the time, and they couldn't actually talk about anything and actually stop. So while they're talking, a lot of the Nazi stock. I'm probably gonna get knocked off of fucking YouTube right now. So the 3 or 4 of you that are on there, handful of you that are over there, you might have to learn how to use Twitch because I can't talk about that. Anyhow, skinheads and such in the Czech Republic have been around for a while, and this was a big movement in the teens. And I, of course, just looking up easily, 2015, anti-skinhead protests in the Czech Republic. So that's no, it's not. Yeah, it's not Ukraine, but they're showing that area of the world was ripe.
According to reports, neo-Nazism is
Another one from
becoming more
2015.
popular and politically influential across Europe, even gaining seats in some national parliaments. Germany has one of the largest neo-Nazi parties, called the National Democratic Party, or NPD. Just like the original Nazi Party in the 1920s and 30s, the NPD labels itself National Socialist. A spokesperson for German Chancellor Angela Merkel called the NPD anti-democratic, xenophobic, anti-Semitic, and a threat to the Constitution. In recent years, the NPD has gained a seat in 2 out of the 16 regional parliaments in Germany, and in 2014, Udo Voigt, a Holocaust denier and former leader of the NPD, joined the European Parliament as an elected member. Officials in Germany have launched a legal attempt to ban the party, as they've done successfully in the past with 2 other Nazi-sympathizing political parties, but they haven't found success yet. Other European countries are also dealing with this problem. In Greece, in 2014, the Golden Dawn Party received over 9% of the vote, gaining 3 seats in the European Parliament. In Slovakia in 2013, the former leader of a banned neo-Nazi organization was elected governor to a central region, which is fairly large. And Russian President Vladimir Putin remarked in 2014 that open neo-Nazism has become commonplace in Latvia and other Baltic states. So what is causing this
All right, that was 2015 again. This one's 2017.
Switzerland is in danger of disappearing, or so the right-wing extremists would have you believe. After years in hiding, they're coming out into the open, taking advantage of current tensions to spread their far-right ideas. They've been inspired by neighbouring countries, most prominently Germany.
One last clip. Get to the point. What a fucking worship. Fucking YouTube. Public domain, you assholes. 2014. Neo-Nazi threat in Ukraine. During that last skirmish.
In place of the defiant speeches, the somber strains of Beethoven now ring out over Independence Square. This revolution is moving into a new phase. But amidst the flowers and the children's tributes, flashes of something more sinister. Groups of armed men strut through the square with dubious iconography. That yellow armband is a Volksangel, a German symbol used by several SS divisions during the Second World War. Far-right graffiti is appearing, daubed on the walls of the city. The people who brought down the government were overwhelmingly ordinary Ukrainians, students and doctors, workers and even families, people who simply refused to back down. But the most organised and perhaps the most effective were a small number of far-right groups. When it came to confrontations with the police, it was often the nationalists who were the loudest and the most violent. A group calling itself the Right Sector is perhaps the largest. Its members can be seen marching around Kiev in columns of about a dozen. Mostly they carry baseball bats. Sometimes they carry guns. We met these men posing for pictures outside the burnt-out remains of what was once their headquarters. I asked them about their political beliefs.
Национал-социалистская тематика иногда в некоторых людях она есть проступает. Как бы, ну, чтобы была единая нация.
So yeah, that was just to kind of refute the whole. They were talking freaking Destiny and Dylan were talking about how there's really, I mean, Nazism is super on the decline in Eastern Europe, and it wasn't really the thing in Ukraine. The Ukraine Jewish something or another said Ukraine was the best country in Eastern Europe or some. It's just, it's hard to believe when I have literally seen protests in Ukraine and Poland with a lot of skinheads. So that's hard to believe. The other one was this phone call.
This is the world's first reusable cotton swab.
Bloody fucking corset. Okay, what are you doing?
When you're a high...
All right. The other one, they were talking about a phone call that they said they never even heard about that. I was like, how did you never even hear about that? Did you start watching news like 2 years ago and then talk? I don't know. It's
ranking official talking about diplomatic efforts in Ukraine. The last thing you want to do is drop your guard.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
But that is exactly what reportedly happened between US Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland and US Ambassador to Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt. The exchange has since surfaced online, including the crude swipe at the European Union. The audio clip of a woman and man, said to be Nuland and Pyatt, hears them discussing strategies to work with the three main opposition figures.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
In terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week,
No.
I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
There is a suggestion for Nuland to contact Klitschko directly to play to his top dog sensibilities, while Nuland refers to getting the United Nations involved in a political solution. And that's where the unfortunate comment arises.
I'm obviously not going to comment on private diplomatic conversations.
Yeah, so she just completely ignored. How do they acted like this situation never happened, and they're just like, that's not even news. That's how propaganda works. They were propagated on this situation, so they don't know the history because they never learned it. They just took what they regurgitated back then and just was like, yep, that's good enough. And so the debate just proved how Destiny and fucking Dylan are obviously mainstream media stooges and they don't know shit. And they never actually researched or dug into anything outside of what they've been fed. And that's my opinion of this debate. And like I said, I've been sick, so my voice is going to lose if I keep talking. Let us do the last couple things here. I just have to get to. I got so much backed up, but it's okay. We got Kamala Harris and her president signs a bill into law. I have a page saved on here. I'm going to be watching them for the next little bit because anything they sign into law right now, they're going to sign like 3 or 4 things into law. They're going to be like this where we all clap and look. There's going to be some hidden shit when they have the news diverted right now. So it's a really good time for them to put some sneaky shit in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Good afternoon. President Joe Biden, members of Congress, and my fellow Americans.
She's too fucking happy right now.
Today we are gathered to celebrate the passage of a law that will make our nation's workplaces more safe and more just. Forced arbitration silences survivors of sexual assault and harassment, shields predators instead of holding them accountable, and gives corporations a powerful tool to hide abuse and misconduct. And it compels the people of our nation, and most often the women of our nation, to sign away one of their most fundamental rights, the right to seek justice in court. The legislation the President will sign today will end forced arbitration in all cases of sexual abuse. And
He looks like he barely knows he's there. He is just a weird person in the corner right now. That's creepy.
almost equally as important, it will apply retroactively.
She's a cop. She's a cop. I agree with this issue, but she's a cop.
Invalidating every one of these agreements, no matter when they were entered into. And as many of you know, it has been a long road to get to today. I co-sponsored this legislation 5 years ago when I was a senator, and we would not have reached this very moment were it not for a bipartisan group of legislators, many of whom are here today. These leaders, they saw clearly this is not a partisan issue. This is not about Republicans or Democrats. This is about right and wrong. As I think about the future, our administration will work with Congress on broader forced arbitration legislation and we will do that to also protect the rights of workers in cases of wage theft, racial discrimination, and unfair labor practices. So I will conclude today by thanking all of the people who are here and all that you represent to make this day possible, and in particular, all the survivors and their allies who spoke out and demanded change. Thank you for your courage and your resilience and for your leadership. And now I will welcome to the podium a woman who was instrumental in the passage of this law, Gretchen Carlson.
I couldn't tell if she was just happy to talk finally. Like, yay, they're letting me do stuff finally. They know Joe's done. They know he's done. Hey, boom, boom. They know he's done. Alright. Can't just do that, right? I got a little Jen for you. I always like to watch her a little bit. Keep up with them. Hi. And he has joined us, so we can say hi to him while we watch little Jen.
We, of course, respect the independence of the Department of Justice. That gives confidence to the American people. That's how it should always be. And they will make a decision about how to move from here. As it relates to Vice President Pence, I would say the President believes that anyone who is asked should participate in the process of getting to the bottom of what happened on January 6th.
Thanks, Jen. On gas, you just said that, less supply raises prices. It's not in our strategic interest to reduce the supply. Yeah. We also know, the President as recently as yesterday talked about increasing domestic manufacturing to bring down prices on inflated items like goods. So why not apply the same logic to energy and increase domestic production here?
Well, there are 9,000 approved oil leases that the oil companies are.
I preferred her with a mask. Oh, that's so mean. But I do. She's the Fox person. I like to watch her all the time. Not all the time. I mean, I watch this almost every day, so I see her all the time. I think I pick her like half the time. I like their little bat because it's always the opposite side gets you more angry, right? And then, of course, people who just drop bombs at the end also throw her off, too.
Not tapping into currently, so I would ask them that question.
Is there nothing that the administration can do to get those providers back to pre-pandemic levels?
Do you think the oil companies don't have enough money to drill on the places that have been pre-approved?
Just asking.
I would point that question to them, and we can talk about it more tomorrow when you learn more.
Do you think that opening the Keystone pipeline and having more energy-friendly policies might do that?
The Keystone Pipeline has never been operational. It would take years for that to have any impact. I know a number of members of Congress have suggested that, but that is a proposed solution that has no relationship or would have no impact on what the problem is. We here all agree is an issue.
During those years where it would, take to bring down prices, as you're saying, we should just continue to buy Russian oil?
Well, again, Jackie, I think you're familiar with a number of steps we've taken, a historic release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Let me finish. What we can do over time, and what this is all a reminder of in the President's view, is our need to reduce our reliance on oil. The Europeans need to do that. We need to do that. If we do more to invest in clean energy, more to invest in other sources of energy, that's exactly what we can do to prevent this from happening in the future. We welcome any Republicans from joining us in that effort. Go ahead.
As long as we're buying Russian oil, though, aren't we financing the war?
Well, Jackie, again, it's only about 10% of what we're importing.
It's too much. We're canceling shit like Stoli and fucking. I heard somebody get mad about Smirnoff. Oh my god. Granted, I'm just waking up in like fever dreams on Twitter going, what the fuck are you people talking about? These things aren't. Oh, they're canceling RT maybe? Or they already did maybe? What is happening right now, guys? I'm just gonna go ahead. Alright, I got it right here, I think. I'm gonna start reading this again. I can't. How does that look? Does that look right? Because that's where we're at, right here. I love this book. I'm reading this again. Russian Beauty. I love Russian literature. We're a bunch of idiots, and I'm reading that again. Thank you, universe, for giving me a reason to read that. Oh my God, guys, this is the idiot. We are the idiot. All of us, collective us.
I've not made any announcement about any decision on that front, but our objective here and our focus is making sure that any step we take maximizes the impact on President Putin and minimizes it on the American people. And anyone who's calling for an end to the carve-out should be clear that that would raise prices. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. On the oligarch sanctions, I know they haven't even been announced yet.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could tell us, like, if there are criteria that you've laid out for them to eventually get unsanctioned. So the idea being that you would incentivize them to pressure Vladimir Putin to end the war by laying out certain criteria that would essentially get them unsanctioned.
That's an interesting question. I mean, right now, obviously, we're in the middle of an invasion, so I don't think now is the moment where we are giving anybody that sort of an off-ramp, but I can certainly check if there's more that we have conveyed to them.
What about the broader universe of sanctions? I mean, same answer, that there's no real criteria being laid out of like what steps the Kremlin needs to take for them to get unsanctioned.
Finding off-ramps for Putin that we discussed. So from your many years in the State Department in a situation like this, that's the first thing that diplomats begin.
Close coordination before heading to Poland, Moldova, and the Baltic countries. But again, our effort and our focus right now is continue to work with our allies and partners to implement these sanctions.
Sorry, you should write down the times.
Put the pressure on.
Or I remember them. And I'm not good at
range
either
of
right now.
conversations. If there are de-escalatory steps that
Said that the West should recognize that where Putin is headed toward, he said, was Berlin. I mean, his point being that he wanted to take this war beyond Ukraine. Is that the administration's current assessment based on what Putin has said in public, in his conversations with Macron, with the president, and so forth?
I think we all watched the speech, which now feels like it was a year ago, but was only last week, where he made clear he had broad ambitions of what he wanted to achieve. It is also true, though, that NATO has never been more unified, thanks in part to President Putin's aggression. And there are a range of countries that are exactly in that region who are NATO partners and allies. And President Putin would have to make a decision to go into a country where there is a NATO alliance, where there's Article 5 obligations, should he decide he wants to proceed beyond. So I don't have a new assessment from here, other than...
If you go to Moldova or Georgia, they're not NATO members.
Certainly, I understand that. But, again, David, I don't have a new assessment to offer. But we are also closely watching, of course, what President Putin does and is doing since he delivered that speech last week. But I don't have anything new beyond what he has himself said publicly. Go ahead.
Pivoting back to the President's State of the Union speech, on Tuesday he said that he wants to secure our border and fix the immigration system. That's a bit of a shift from last year's speech to Congress, where he spoke more about trying to find the root causes of why people are migrating. Why was there this sort of shift in messaging, kind of focusing on securing the border? And is that a new priority, or have priorities changed on immigration for the administration?
No, I would say first the bill that the president proposed on his first day in office included smarter security and border protections, and also included a more humane path for migrants entering the country. Both of those remain priorities for the president. He believes
We still have cages, we still have holding facilities, we still have them all over the place.
that the immigration system is broken. It's long overdue to fix it. He also believes, and worked on this very closely as vice president, that addressing the root causes is one of the central steps we need to remain focused on, even as we're trying to address the current circumstances at the border.
It's important for the president to say advocate for securing our border. I know he's been criticized heavily, by Republicans, by certain folks on, how he's handled immigration at the border. So is that important for him to say?
Well, that's part of his bill that he proposed, so it's consistent with his policies.
And one last question. Has there been any discussion on ending Title 42? I know we've talked, the president even talked about it on Tuesday, about how we're moving past the pandemic. This is obviously a policy that's been kept in place because of the pandemic. Has there been any discussions on ending that?
Well, that is a decision for the CDC to make. I believe Dr. Walensky said yesterday that she's reviewing that decision. So I can't get ahead of any decision she makes, but she is looking at that, and that's an assessment they make from the CDC. Go ahead, Karen.
Thanks, Jen. Back to the oligarchs and the sanctions. You had said earlier that you want Putin to feel the squeeze and the people around him to feel the squeeze. How does the...
Her reactions, I love them. They make me laugh. And I didn't know she was a thing before, and her old clips, she's even more just feisty, as she liked to say, or whatever, snappy, or whatever the hell she said before. I love how, whatever she said, I heard her actually describe it, and I find humor. Let's get through this commercial. Get to the clip. Okay. So today the verdict was reached on Brett Hankinson, and this is the Breonna Taylor verdict. The police officer, the ex-police officer that shot and killed Breonna Taylor, and a no-knock, a human being sleeping, got shot to death on a no-knock warrant. This is the absolute most disgusting thing that can happen. How it happens is just horrific. And this is also horrible. Just horrible.
All right, and who is the foreperson of the jury? And have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
If you would give the verdict form to the deputy sheriff, please. Under verdict form number 1, we, the jury, find the defendant, Brett Hankinson, not guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree under instruction number 4, as that applies to Cody Etherton. Verdict form number 2, as to Chelsea Napper, we, the jury, find the defendant, Brett Hankinson, not guilty of wanton endangerment first degree under instruction number 5. As to verdict form number 3, wanton endangerment first degree as to Zayden F., we, the jury, find the defendant, Brett Hankinson, not guilty of wanton endangerment first degree under instruction number 6. Counsel, anything further from this jury?
On behalf of the defendant, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, cannot thank you enough for the time and attention that you have paid to this case.
It's fucking disgusting. So I don't... with everything else going on, with everything else going on, all the things, this story should obviously be up there. And if it's not in the next 2 days, you know how our hyper focus is focused. It's not on what's really important. So I set up a Twitter question thing. You can find it at Stony Progressive or at Todd Foster. But it was about, who's your real enemy right now? Who in the world is your real enemy? Your all capital. And the answers were Russia, Putin, your job, or your government. And I mean, I think I started it right off with saying my job. No, I said my government. I said my government. But I left my job there because I thought maybe people might pick that. Putin's killing it. And that just blows me away. Yes, Putin is not a great president, and I think we could do better in Russia, but the last time there was an election, the other person was way worse, so we were lucky to even get Putin, I guess. I don't know. I don't know Russian politics that well, but I do know that he's an elected leader, and his elections are as questionable as ours. So our elections are very questionable. So all of that is in play still. The world is still happening like that. And this trial's fucked. We need to be talking about this constantly right now. So yes. So next on my list of this right here was just some good stock footage. This is just good old-fashioned stock footage. This is the kind of shit we could be seeing. We have no idea. I'm going to put it a little bit fast forward. But this is just a reminder that not everything we see necessarily is what's happening in these zones. There have been so many times where the memorable picture from a recent news push, meaning a news push being they push some sort of war or conflict on us, the main picture they're showing, the main picture they're storing is bullshit. And it happened in the Iraq War, it happened in Syria, it's happened in Syria #2. They constantly do this. So, and then I remember a month ago they were talking about Russia's gonna do this fake news push. And it's like, you guys have been caught doing this shit every fucking war. So America does it too. And this is all stock war footage. If you happen to catch this might not be Syria bombing us, because that would be pretty funny if a World War I bomber came in and then bombed. If you see that, definitely question it. But in like Syria, they were showing Libya footage. They were showing like the Libya uprising footage for Syria footage. Like that often happened. So you can't believe anything that mainstream media pushes against you. And, this is convincing stock. Like, this is convincing-ish. There were some really good clips in here. That's not going to show me right now. Where I would go right from, like, yeah, that's convincing, I guess. A lot of that same, and then right to, like, World War I, like, so that was pretty funny. I think I should be able to get away with doing this. It's late enough and old enough of a clip. But this is how I feel right now. And I think we needed a little bit lighter of a mood since we've been doing this.
We're building a...
And as I say that, it's going to go right to a fucking commercial. But lighten the mood a touch for these last couple little short clips. I'm going to finish off with a couple protests. Try to always get to the protests, but my shorter stream for my sick day. We'll let this guy get their whole video commercial. Thanks everybody for joining so far. I got one funny clip and then two protest clips to get through before we head out for the night. I'm too sick to give a shit about getting another bull pack, so we'll just make it through. I usually try to smoke the whole way. Just be stupid by the end of it. Oh, and that's where we're kind of at right now, right? All right. this is just a reminder. I think this was from the last, it's like 36 hours ago from now. But yeah, the Wellington, New Zealand protests are still happening in a nation that is 90% hit up. They still have protests because of mandates. I don't know if I can say that either. Can't say all these words on YouTube. Shouldn't stream both of these at the same time. That's why we're rolling.
Those protesters illegally occupying Parliament grounds and surrounding streets have been given ample opportunity to leave. It is time for them to go. As the Police Commissioner said this morning, it's time to clear the roads and restore order for Wellingtonians. It will be obvious to those who work in and around Parliament that the protest has been at times violent and increasingly fuelled by misinformation and, sadly, conspiracy theories. It has also become a location of interest. We know COVID has circulated within the protest and there have been hospitalisations as a result. Whatever point the protesters were making at the beginning was made, but it is time for it to end.
In the last week, we've seen a changing mix in the makeup of the crowd. In particular, we've become concerned that those with good intentions are now outnumbered by those with a willingness to use violence to effect their means. We have observed an escalation in concerning behaviour, which has ultimately resulted in today's action.
Oh, that's so nice. Look at how nice they are to start things. Good stuff. There's the protest. There's the riot rally. Military equipment. There we go. That's the British oligarchy like we know. Remember, their police are just British cops too. American cops, Israel cops, Australian cops. They're all the same. Right. There's one local protest they had on. Local for me, Floridian at the moment. Lived all over the country though. West Coast mostly. Michigan most grew up. I really can't stand that commercial.
Discussions of sexuality and gender in public schools.
ABC Action News reporter Rebecca Petit spoke to students about why they're rallying against what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill.
In Florida.
Students here at Brandon High School walked out of school today holding a rainbow.
That's fun. I am, Brandon, really? Wait, yeah, Brandon, okay. That's, Brandon is, shit. Like northeast of Tampa, which is the direction I'm going for my dentist in the morning. So there is another protest on the University of South Florida, Tampa, which I'm also going to be in the neighborhood tomorrow against Ukraine. Obviously the anti-war, which I'm a big fan. You know, anti-war. We just need to anti-war all the stuff America's doing too. We need to fight for both. But what's happening in Ukraine is unquestionably bad. Horrible. Nobody should be dying for any stupid fucking political reasons. It's no. But anyway, yeah, this is over in my neighborhood. I can maybe check this out tomorrow.
And chanting the words, "We say gay." They say this bill could do major damage to LGBTQ kids. Students at Brandon High School marched out to the front of campus in opposition of a highly controversial policy critics call the Don't Say Gay bill. It's just one of many protests happening in schools throughout the Bay Area today.
We care about students' voices, about their rights, showing support for who they are.
The bill prohibits classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade or when it's not age appropriate. Supporters say parents should be in charge of these conversations.
I want to remind you, because this is a senior high school walkout, that this is an area that is very red. North Tampa itself is blue, but the outskirts like Brandon is very red. And yeah, so these people have probably Trump supporting parents, and yet they're protesting for this. So that's what kind of situation we have. Just want to play both sides there. This is this is a red zone, so their parents are probably red. Most of their parents are probably red.
Students
Not
worry
all.
the legislation
I'm sure there's a few, but it's like a 70%, 65% red area. So most of these people are probably red.
would make LGBTQ kids feel the need to hide their sexuality.
And that could lead to suicide rates in LGBTQ students going up in Florida. It could also lead to more harassment, bullying in general. You could lose a lot of students' trust in schools.
Can we have her debate DeSantis? Because it looks like she would smoke him. I love it.
Would allow parents to sue school districts that they believe to be in violation. Students at today's protest tell me the bill would reverse the progress made towards acceptance of LGBTQ people.
We have a GSA, a strong GSA here at the school, a gay-straight alliance. And it's very likely that after this bill, we may not even be able to have that.
The Don't Say Gay bill moves to the Senate floor for a vote. Governor Ron DeSantis has signaled his support for the bill, but has not said whether or not he would sign it.
He signaled the support, but that guy is such a freaking politician. I don't like DeSantis, mostly because of his anti-protest, anti-free speech, he's not that kind of person. So I do not support him. But yeah, maybe we'll see how things look. I might take a little cruise over there tomorrow after my everything. If I go to my dentist, if I feel better in the morning. I've been sick for a few days. I've better now that I've taken like 500 naps in the last 2 days. I'm gonna take another one. So I got a lot of stuff I haven't hit yet. I will try to get to some of that tomorrow. And Friday nights I always try to go over what protests are coming up. And I'm going to go try to hit a couple protests, maybe take some actual footage my personal self, show you some actual footage myself. That's what I want to do anyway. But I don't usually get an opportunity, but I have the day off for a dentist appointment tomorrow, so I will maybe check those out and see you guys then. So Stony Progressive out tonight. And when I'm healthy, I'll be doing these 6 nights a week or so. But right now, it has been a battle. And I usually try to go for more than 2 hours. Anyway, sorry. Good night. Thanks for joining me. 85% of you that usually watch later, go ahead and check me out at midnight sometime, guys.